Hey there, Ralph Velasco here in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Behind me you see Geneva Lake, but Lake Geneva is the name of the town. And this is sort of the playground of people from the Chicago area, Milwaukee, and around the country and the world. But there's a lot of very expensive homes here. It's a beautiful place. And I'm going to take something called the mailboat ride. So that's something that I want to show you in this video today. So stick around. There's a tourist attraction near Chicago, just about an hour from where I base myself in between trips, and it's one I never even heard of. I often encourage people to be a tourist in their own backyard, especially when it comes to practicing with new camera and video gear, before taking it on a once-in-a-lifetime trip where the stakes are higher. But the truth is, sometimes I'm not so good at taking my own advice. I was invited by Marty, a client of mine, to meet her in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, where for many years she's had a summer home, and she recommended that we take a scenic boat tour. Now, this is a place I used to go to as a kid, but despite the fact that it's so close, I probably hadn't been to Lake Geneva in some 30 years. I'm a huge fan of boating, and I love to get my groups on the water wherever we are, but I'd never heard of the specific one called the U.S. Mailboat Tour. We boarded the 75-foot-long Walworth II, which was built in 1967. Marty knew to get there early and suggested that we sit on the right or starboard side of the boat on the upper deck. Because the tour goes counterclockwise around the lake, this is the side that all the action is on, so I highly recommend that you do the same. Although the lower deck had great views too, but did have some windows to contend with, and at times might have actually been too close to the action. Now, from June 15th to September 15th each year, the Lake Geneva U.S. Mailboat delivers mail to roughly 75 homes around the lake, and apparently this service has been around in one form or another for over 100 years. As we waited for everyone to board and for some inclement weather to pass, the mail jumper, a young woman who'd been doing this for 5 years or so, was stretching in between greeting clients and taking tickets. This would surely come in handy as she jumped from the moving boat to each of the houses on her route for 2.5 hours straight. It's interesting to note that Lake Geneva became an even more popular place to summer and even live year-round just after the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. So many of Chicago's big-name industrialists, including the Wrigleys, Sears, and Schwinn families, chose to live in nearby Lake Geneva, building incredibly beautiful houses and impressive compounds. As we not so slowly moved around the lake, the mailboat jumper would expertly fling herself off the side of the boat's starboard bow and onto the many private docks along the route. She'd catch her balance, open the customer's mailbox, pop in their mail or newspaper, and quickly jump back on the moving boat's starboard stern before it drifted away, never losing momentum. The jumper even threw in a few unexpected cartwheels, and at one point was dropped off at one dock and then ran nonstop for approximately 1.5 kilometers along the shore to perfectly time her meeting back up with the boat at the end of another dock. It didn't take long for me to realize why she spent so much time stretching before we took off, and why this is a young person's game. Although I seem to remember the captain telling the story of another woman who was one of the original boat jumpers way back when, who came back to do the whole route at age 67, just to see if she could, and she did. Along the way, the homeowners, families with small children, and even a dog or two would wait for the mailboat to come by and take it directly from her hand. At the end of the trip, we were even greeted by a man dressed as Santa Claus who is said to be out there each and every day. According to Wikipedia, Geneva Lake covers an area of approximately 5,400 acres, or roughly 8.5 square miles, has a maximum length of 7.5 miles, and a maximum depth of 135 feet, which is pretty impressive by most standards. And it's a little known fact that there's a public walkway around the entire lake that is 26 miles long and is supposed to take upwards of 8 to 10 hours for the average person to complete. The cost for the U.S. mailboat tour is $46 per person plus tax, which seemed a bit pricey at first, but once I experienced this 2.5-hour tour, I was more than happy to pay for the opportunity and definitely felt I got my money's worth. Have you ever seen anything like this? Have you ever been to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin before? Let us know in the comments below. Now, be sure to follow me on social media and join the Continental Drifter community over on Facebook and give us a big thumbs up. And remember, drifters, life's too short not to travel.